it's almost like there is something to say for doing good enough, lots of good enough work, because it shows progress.
And I think that the key is trying to figure out, probably through that planning stage, what things are okay to be good enough. Because there are some things where good enough is perfectly fine, right? And I don't care if I get excellent because good enough works, right? But then there are other things that we need, if we plan it, we go, this has to be the best thing I've ever turned out.
Right, depends on the profile of it.
Exactly.
Like how visible is it? The most visible stuff, you better kick ass on.
And it's funny, as I sit and think about the planning side, everything is the same for me right now. So it comes in the door, and I don't gauge it saying this needs to be excellent, this needs to be good enough. I just go, it all kind of has to be good enough, right? So,
but I think that can really be demoralizing too when you do stuff and you know it's good enough, and you know if you had an extra hour, an extra day or something, it would be 50% better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I say?
Absolutely.
Just as I'm listening to everything around the table, I don't know if this is relevant to the group, but as I'm listening to everybody, I'm realizing how my job is different. I'm not meeting heavy. I'm not, in my job, I don't make priorities. I don't manage people. Mine is more paperwork, every detail, in line, making sure offer letters are done correctly, make sure
T's
job
crossed,
postings
I's dotted.
Right. So like, where you guys are talking like all of this, trying to set priorities for groups and your own stuff, I'm like, what's that pile of paperwork that I didn't get to because I'm constantly interrupted. So it's just interesting how within the organization, how people's jobs are different. I can't imagine what you guys do at those meetings.
Well, I would challenge that a little bit, man, because you have 5 people that you have to respond to.
Yeah.
And obviously, Michelle's
In
number
addition
one.
to everyone else, like, can I have movie tickets?
Yeah.
I'm guilty.
And how do you decide, Christy's got a job posting, I've got a job posting, so-and-so needs this, so-and-so
And
needs
Michelle
that.
needs that, whatever. So it's just funny, different jobs in the
It's a little
organization.
different, but
and
we have priorities all the time.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
But how they're different.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I thought it was important for us to have this group forum and then to do some one-on-one work, since everybody is very different. And I'm really glad that we're talking about these challenges and these common challenges. We're about halfway through the presentation. We'll run a little bit long just because we've had some great conversation, and I so appreciate it. But I want to transition from talking about the exercise to what those challenges are that we face every day. Does anybody need to get up and stretch or move their legs, anything?
Copy.
Should we wait for you?
No, go ahead.
Okay, great. So besides the common challenges that we've talked about here, and what we've sort of learned from the exercise that are pretty common across the board, here are some of the other things I hear. I can't stick to artificial deadlines. It's got to be a real deadline. No time to plan. It's got to be good enough, just no time. Thought I was doing that right thing. Was actually doing the wrong thing.
Oh, that one right there is really frustrating because if you're not totally in sync, it comes down to communication and just, confirming that over and over and just making absolutely crystal clear this is what we're doing.
This is what we're doing.
Because that can be a huge waste of time.
Well, here sometimes if you get into a project and you're like, okay, I'm working on it, I'm advancing it. The priorities changed in another room, but then maybe that communication can get to you. So then you're like, oh, here it is, I'm feeling all super snappy about this. And you're like, oh no, do you not get the memo?
You weren't in the right meeting.
What? Yeah.
That's the problem.
That's because you were triple booked and you had to decide which one to go to.
Yeah. And then you're like, so that's what it is.
Well, again, knowing what's reality and what we can control and what we can't control. We can't control the CEO from coming in and saying, I need that phone number, we need to stop what you're doing. It just might be the way
I'd
it
be
is.
happy. If that was the request, I'd be like, here are all the phone numbers all day long. That's done. Here's a phone
Knowing
number.
what we really can control.
I did something good today.
Check, I did that onto my list, cross
Good for me.
off.
Good for me.
And that's that out of the control area. Does anybody have any others that they want to bring up that are kind of common challenges, things they experience?
I would say workspace. So when I came here as a contractor, I had an office with a door. So I could shut the door and made that barrier. I can be really chatty, so if people come by, I engage with them, and I'm not mad that they interrupted me because I want to talk to them.
Verbal processor.
But I have coworkers, and I'm sucking up my own time. I did yesterday, I was completely like stressing out about something I needed to get done. It was on a deadline. Then there was someone that I was talking to that I was like, I don't want to talk to that person. Like, it was such a bad use of time.
Procrastination.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have one for this. I find that in my group, the challenges are people have different energy levels throughout the day.
Great one.
Like, I'm a morning person. That's why when you come in at 9:30, I have my headphones on because everybody's chatting because they're not ready to really start like their coffee, and I'm trying to be, and then people kind of up in the afternoon. So having different times of day where people want to be focused and being in a very open concept in some of the departments,
that could be a
That's
challenge.
huge, right? I think that, if I'm not mistaken, everybody is, there's no one in the room that has an office, right?
Mhm.
You know?
I used to call them my Veal Pen. I think that came out of the Generation X book
Yeah.
9 years ago. Veal Pen,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generation
And you're
X.
absolutely right, because I get in so early. I'm completely into something at 9 o'clock when everyone walks in the door. And then you have the 30 minutes of, hey, how are you? How was
Did
your
you see
night?
this TV?
And I'm like, I don't want to be routine, but go away.
Yes.
Right? Like, I can't handle this. Right?
Like our entire team is in by 8:15, and so we're
If
like,
you're in after 8:15, you feel like, oh my god,
Right?
right,
It's like
yeah.
I just celebrated my night at 7 o'clock by myself when I came in. I've already had this conversation. Hello. Great.
so that's
I love that TV
tough.
show.
I took a time management seminar. I was 22 years old, Arnold Communication. I was feeling like a big shot. I had a job right out of school. Of course, I was a coordinator, you know, in a tiny little space in the corner. And the person from time management, 25 plus years ago, said, take a piece of tape, tape it across your little cube, and put a sign up. I'm busy. And I thought, are you insane?
I did.
I'm a
I used to do
coordinator.
that here.
But that same strategy that she recommended to me 25 years ago is still something that works today. It's nothing personal. It's part of changing the culture. I just need to get this done.
We have lovely offices, modern, physically, right? But the workspace we have isn't that big, so the I have the challenge of I'm visual, going out, and you have to move on to the next thing. Everything has to go away. So, like for me, I need wall space. I mean, you know, you need big stuff, but not everything has it. So you're trying to kind of have to pack it up sometimes, and then you have to unpack it, which is that startup.
Unless you have a 10,000 square foot house, it's not that different than what your office might look like at home or the kids' playroom. You've got to unpack it and repack it. It's part of that same routine.
Let me ask you a question about the kind of the tape, right? As a manager, I feel as though one of my main responsibilities as a manager is to manage and to be available for the people that are on my team.
Okay?
So how do you do something like that and still be effective and open for your team?
Such a great question. We're going to deal with that in the second half. Interruption Nation.
Because I'd love to put up a sign saying "Go away." I got to be honest sometimes, right? But
Invitation. We're inviting people to Interruption Nation instead of inviting people to come during our plan time. Hey, I'm always available on Mondays. No matter what, I don't plan myself big projects. Or office hours.
yeah.
I'm going to be a better manager. You guys know I'm going to be a better manager if I have that time for my Now, let's see it.
It's a shift. Kaizen. We're going to talk about Kaizen. But Kaizen means very small shifts at a time. We cannot wave a magic wand and change everything. What we can do is begin to make slight shifts in our behavior and then share that behavior with our colleagues and or people who report out to us. I'm going to shift into the reasons why we don't do things, and we talked about a little bit here before. Found out 4 reasons, and I read this in a book when I first started my career. But since I've been working with clients, they've really reinforced this. I don't do things because STEP is way too big, project's way too big. I don't know what to do next.
Let's say that. We'll say that in the middle of the day.
I don't know what to
You
do
sit there, you go,
next. I have a strategy for that. It's psychological or emotional block for whatever reason. I can't clean out my husband's closet. He passed away. I had a really bad experience doing this presentation. I was mortified. I spilled coffee down my shirt. It's too hard for me to go. Psychological or emotional. Or it's physically out of our control. Why else would you choose it?
One thing I would add to this list, and probably it fits under 3, is I don't feel connected to this. I don't see how this fits into the larger picture of what we're doing strategically, or what's the importance of this, and what's my connection to it, and where's it going after it comes from me. Like, it just feels dislocated. So that's probably psychological.
Actually, it's a piece of it is psychological, but what I'm getting is that one of your strengths is emotional processing. You need to have some sort of context, some sort of meaningful context.
Meaningful is a good word.
And we're going to talk about
Relevance.
relevance.
Yeah.
I think there might be one other issue that I don't know if you guys know, it's the chunk of time thing. I know something's going to take an hour, and I don't have an hour, so I keep not getting that hour to get started. And it's probably somewhat psychological. I probably don't want to do it, but that becomes the kind of excuse.
It's actually, the step is too big and you don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
We need to Kaizen. It's my vote for the day.
And then the second thing I'd say is that oftentimes here I think we get into the thing of giving people a piece of a project. Somebody asks you for something, you have no idea what they're going to use it for, why they're going to use it, how it fits in anything, and so it makes it doubly hard to do. And then when you find out after you've done something that's probably the wrong thing, find out how they actually were going to use it.
And plus,
really helpful.
and plus, if you know how it fits into the bigger picture, you'll do a better job on it because you'll see the connections or make new connections or whatever.
It's like the thing where somebody gives you a puzzle that you put together, but they take the box away so you can't see what it's supposed to look like in the end. You've got all these little pieces here, you're trying to put it together.
Visual is a visual processor.
Yeah.
Needs to see it. Somebody who's intuitive, they know from their gut, they can kind of feel what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things that's important to you. So knowing that as you get started is a piece of what's going to help you move forward. So we've got all these challenges. We know what's getting in the way. But this is our job. We've got to overcome it. And how do we do that? Especially with limited. And I'm not going to say limited, I'm going to say existing time, since we can't change it. Time is just existing. That's why we're here today, to figure this out. We want to identify our strengths. We're going to talk about strengths, which I've sort of started pointing out. Figure out how to use them. Create and practice daily routines. And be purposeful. When I first started working with clients, some were home-based, some were professionals, one of the things I noticed was they had all this stuff. And they had all this stuff to do. But they had abandoned any system. They had no way of figuring out what it was to do or when to do it. And by identifying their strengths and what they do most naturally, when they do it most naturally, started to loosen up. They were able to start doing things. The more they could do it, the less overwhelmed they felt. More able to take on something new. Sort of a nice layered sandwich. To overcome our challenges, we need to identify our strengths and what we do naturally. Once we start doing that, we definitely feel things start to ease. We want to talk about what strength-based balance means. We talk a lot about time balance and strength balance. And yes, I was a gymnast when I was a little kid. Not where it came from, but sort of funny. Keep talking about knowing yourself and knowing your strengths. And this might sound a little silly and a little simple, and maybe it is, but it doesn't have to be so complex. Has anybody really sat down and thought about, what do I do, not only well, I know I'm a good writer, I know I'm good with clients, but what comes naturally to them in managing what they have to do for the day? I work so much better with music. I work so much better if I can shut my door, put my headphones on. When do you work best? We had a morning person. Christy's more of a night owl. She says she works better if she can stay later. How does pressure affect you? Do you need that hard, fast deadline? Or does too much stress and all that last-minute multitasking really throw you off?
The funny thing about this one, if I think about it, my own internal pressure I put on myself makes me work better. Some pressure on me deflates me. So it's interesting how pressure can be different.
I always used to tell my bosses, you could never be as hard on me in a review as I'm going to be on myself. It's part of how you process, part of your expectations of yourself. So how are you getting things done? Can you do it if you talk it out with someone? Talk to yourself? Are you being distracted by, oh, here's a more important project? Or the radio next door, or thinking about your family, or a picture that comes in? What are you really motivated by? Do you need hard, cold facts in order to make a decision and get that project started or move forward? Or do you have a gut feeling? I just know this is the right way to start the copy. I know this is the right way to approach the client. I know if I can just sort my papers, Meredith, into categories, that will give me the facts I need. This goes into this file, this goes into that file. Or do I do it by gut? I think this is what I need to do first. It's really about knowing yourself. For me, one of the most important skills in being productive and having a better time management system, which we're going to look at in the next couple of slides, is to help people really identify what their strengths are and what they do well. And this is the scaffolding of changing your habits around time balance and around time management. I included a copy of this as well in the back of your presentation. It's by a woman by the name of Denslow Brown, who's a certified organizer coach, coach trainer, and certified professional organizer. And she gives us actually 9 modalities. I took out taste and smell because I don't think it applies as much to what we do here. So we have 8 modalities. The first 4, pretty common. Everyone says, oh, I'm visual, I'm auditory. There's actually 8 that I think are important. And as we go through these, I might ask that you just take some notes or circle or highlight things that maybe feel like they resonate for you, so we can use those when we meet. Would that be okay? Mm-hmm. So the first one is about visual, seeing, focusing by seeing. I see the chart on the wall, I see the stuff on the floor, I see my calendar. I need to see things in order to remember them. Auditory, focus by listening. Have you ever had somebody ask you to repeat those instructions? They're focusing by hearing you. Kinesthetic, so me, moving around. Focus by moving, touching, doing. Tactile is sort of the cousin of kinesthetic. It's a feel. I do not like black pens. I just think I was a weirdo. I only like red pens or blue pens. I don't like pens that are too wet. It's about the feeling of the page. It's about the feeling of the pen. If I have a pen that I don't like, I'm going to be much less likely to sit down and start that project. It sounds silly, but again, all these little pieces go into getting us to be a little bit more efficient with our time. Next 4. A little less well known. Verbal processor, 2-type, oral. We're focusing on language, talking things through, talking about what your priorities are, talking about what we need to get done today. Written, focusing on language. Some people do nice, long, explicitive emails, and they're like, oh my goodness, it's a 7-page email. But it's how they process by putting it down in written form. Emotional, relationship-based, criteria of feelings and connections. I have a client, family does very well, kids are in after school, you're late for after school, you end up paying extra money. Mm-hmm. New motivation. She was late every single day. One day the security guard pulled her aside and said to her, you know, I have to stay until all the kids are gone. And when you don't come until 4:15, I don't make my 4:30 train, which means I miss my bus, which means I don't get to have dinner with my kids. She was on time about 60% of the time. Not perfect, but better. Because for her, it was about the person and not making that person miss dinner time with their family. She couldn't care less about the money. Cognitive, cruising strategy, anchored in science. I need the facts and figures. There's no way you're going to get me to move forward with that project unless I have facts and figures and I know I've got science behind it. Intuitive, inner voice, knows without proof, that gut feeling. So I hope everybody sort of circled or just made a little note about where they might feel like some of their strengths fall. Now I want to talk a little bit about how some strategies can support you if you have that particular strength. If you're visual, you like color or clear containers so you can see through it. You like to do things like a mind map. This was my mind map getting ready when I couldn't get myself started. It's not pretty, but it worked for me. Got me going. Pom-pom theory, tying something to the end of your keys or something you need to remember, something that's sort of shiny and that will make you actually see it. Leaving projects out on your floor so you can see what you need to do, or the filing behind you. Creating beautiful surroundings, not being able to start your day until the kitchen is clean and the desk is organized. Maybe a wall calendar or a vision board, something that's going to